All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And I'm your host, Ronald Bethea, and you know if you join us on the regular basis, the slogan for this show, if there's power in numbers, then the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC captures that power for your financial benefit. The Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC serves as we've indicated, an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African owned renewable energy companies. Also, to develop capacity and initiatives for our HBCUs so we can bring down the underemployment of young African American men and women, African and African American young men and women on our HBCU campuses, locally, nationally, and throughout the diaspora to prepare them for this new digital age around the issue of developing intellectual softwares to combat this change in the market dynamics here in the U.S. Also, to educate the African and African American community about the economic impacts of climate change and the need for environmental education through Black Talk radio programs such as Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ron Bethea. I'm your host. And today's date is August the 14th, 2026. And we know we haven't done a show in several weeks now. We've been working on a number of initiatives, which one of the initiatives that you are looking at behind me, which is the actual marketing material for our new community solar collaboration with Think Energy. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am working through a contractual agreement as an independent energy advisor with Think Energy. Think Energy is an energy customer acquisition company. No, we don't sell anything, ladies and gentlemen, because you're already paying for it. That's your electricity bill. What Think Energy does, it educates people around the issue of community solar, which is free for anyone who pays an electricity bill that is in their name. You want to be able, and you're able to lower your rates and lock in your rates to up to 20 years. There's no installs, there's no maintenance, and no hassles. So you support local clean energy policy in the 15 states and the District of Columbia, where Think Energy is registered, and we are able to operate and educate the communities. And we're specifically interested in working with our low and moderate income communities around community solar projects. Now, this program here is a part of our Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact show. These are our marketing materials around this. And remember that you're listening to the online digital podcast, radio, TV, YouTube TV network, which we bring you every opportunity. We're able to bring that, and we're going to be back on a regular weekly basis here at the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC. Now, we're your online source for solar and renewable energy project funding, and you'll be able to find that out And we verify everything through our website, and you know where to go. It's positivechangepc.com. That's, it's always three W's with a dot. Then it's positive, CHANGEPC.com. That is our website, ladies and gentlemen. And we are going to let you know that you can go to a Union Mission, which is located in Northeast Washington, D.C. If you are a person who may be needing food assistance, and the Union Mission is located at 3194 Bladensburg Road Northeast, which is the operation which is run by Reverend Hector. His last name is Arriaga. And Reverend Hector is a real stand-up minister. And they have allowed me to put signage in, which is exactly as what you see behind me, with our 11 by 7 postcards, which has a barcode, which will take you directly to my enrollment page at get.thinkenergy.com/solar now and the future. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's get.think, THINKENERGY.com/solar now in the future. And you go to our Think login page, and it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. You just want to make sure that you have your electric bill there. And on that second page, you will be able to find your account and regular energy account number and your residential account number. And you enter that with a few other areas on your name information, which is necessary for us to be able to verify who you are and that you do qualify for the program. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to jump right into our subject matter today. Ladies and gentlemen, to come on the airways and to talk and not have anything to talk about is one thing. But when you bring things to the forefront concerning our community, you better have done your homework. So that's what we did before we chose to do this subject matter today, ladies and gentlemen. And this is my opinion as one who has worked and done the work in the renewable energy sector. I am presently serving as the chairman of the board of directors for the National Association of Blacks in Solar. We are a 501c3 organization. The organization, our president is Nathaniel Daly. He is a dynamic young brother who leads the Northern Virginia Business Council. And Nathan is the president of our organization. Now, I served in that capacity for 5 years. And looking at the overall picture. Now, our subject matter today, ladies and gentlemen, is entitled, "What is the real reason for the resignation of the chairman of the DC Public Service Commission, Mr. Emil Thompson?" I've chose this topic and subject matter for today's show. I received a phone call from Mr. Ted Trabue, who is currently serving as one of the DC Public Service Commissioners here in Washington, D.C. First, let me be very, very clear. I have known Commissioner Trayview for over a decade, over 10 years, and I'm very aware of the outstanding jobs, both as him and Chairman Thompson has done serving in the on the capacity at the DC Public Service Commission, because I attend those meetings in the communities around the concerns of DC residents in all 8 wards. And I've done this for a number of years. And this is why I wanted to bring this to you. What's more important is that looking at the facts that the DC Public Service Commission is comprised of only 3 members. Now you have over 207 public service commissioners serving in the United States of America. We only have 15 African Americans in that capacity nationwide. We are a nation of over 350 million people in 50 states and Guam and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. So what I'm saying is this, ladies and gentlemen, these positions are very, very important because the Public Service commissions are charged with protecting the pockets and the economic interests of the ratepayers and the constituents of the jurisdictions in which they serve. We understand that. But they also are independent bodies, and they have to be balanced and fair to all entities, private sector, public sector, businesses, nonprofits. Everybody burns electricity. Now, we know that the PJM is the regulatory entity that services that this market demographics. But the importance of the fact that out of 207 commissioners, African Americans only comprise 7.2%. And being located in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., this is historic under Mayor Bowser's administration that she had an 100% 3 commissioners who are all African Americans, Mr. Warren Beverly, Mr. Ted Trayview, and Mr. Emil Thompson. And they have done a hell of a job. And I'm going to talk about the facts. This is not personal. Now, Commissioner Ted Trayview informed me when he spoke with me over the phone this week that Mayor Bowser had submitted both his name and Commissioner Emil Thompson's name, who is the chairman of the board of the public services, who's been serving as chairman of the board of Public Service Commission, to the DC Council twice. And it was met with opposition by Mrs. Jimmy, the newly elected Democratic nominee, Mrs. George, who represents Ward 4 here in Washington, D.C. Now, she served on the council, Mrs. Jasmine Lewis George. She served on the council. She came on in 2021. She ran in 2020, and she was elected. So she came in. She's an attorney. She has a legal background here in the District of Columbia. And all that information is available. We've reached out by making several calls, and we did not get a return call before we're doing the show today, but we will be going to some listening sections that she will be starting next month around around the city, and I will be making my business to get there and raise these issues. This issue around Commissioner Emil Thomas and Ted Trabue opportunity to serve on the Public Service Commission, which expired for both of them June 30th of 2026. But they could have been already approved by the city council, and it would have provided the residents, the 700,000 residents of District of Columbia, continuity in leadership inside the DC Public Service Commission. But what you're going to find, the reason why they there's been so much pushback against Mr. Emil and Mr. Ted Trabue is because of a rate hike that took place 2 years ago that came by way of the PJM. Now, for my listening audience, I want you to understand who the PJM is. The PJM is comprised of, it is first the interconnection, which is usually called the PJM, or the organization responsible for operating the electrical system grid, supplying power to 67 million people who live in 13 states and the District of Columbia. The PJM is comprised of 1,131 corporations. About 85% of those companies are vested in the fossil fuel industry, whether it be coal, gas, oil, alternative fuels. That's who the PJM, a number of those entities. You have your utility companies, you have your unions. All of these organizations are members of the PJM. To say it literally, it is the oldest and most powerful organization in the United States of America, because the PJM is the most densely populated states when you take into Virginia, parts of North Carolina, Kentucky, District of Columbia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Maine, Massachusetts, Ohio, parts of Ohio and Illinois. These, Connecticut, these are all states that come under the regulatory authority of the PJM. Now, the PJM annually has wholesale meeting, sets the wholesale rate at their spring meetings. And in 2023, December of 2023, Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania got the delegation of the other 12 governors together with him, the mayor of the District of Columbia, the officers of the public people's councils of these states, and office of the public service commissions, all came together and they sued the PJM at the Federal Regulatory Commission. At that time, the head of the Federal Regulatory Commission was a brilliant young African-American gentleman who I personally have a great deal of respect for, Mr. Willie Phillips, who served as head of the D.C. Public Service Commission before Mr. Emil Thompson took the position. Now, President Biden tapped Mr. Phillips and appointed him, and he became the first African American to serve as head of the Public Service Commission. What is very important about this is that this case was brought in the end of this year, December 23rd, when they filed. They had to have this matter heard and ruled on before the spring meeting for the PJM. That was done. Governor Shapiro and the governors, to their credit, and the offices of the Attorney General and the People's Council, they were able to stop a $21 billion electricity rate hike, which would have hit all 67 million ratepayers in all 13 states and the District of Columbia. As soon as this matter was settled in 2024, the PJM, the utility companies came right back and filed for a 900% rate hike, and it went through. The governors were not able to stop that with the offices of the Attorney General. And this is what the actual numbers were. The settlement capped the annual wholesale rates through the end of fiscal year 2028-2029 delivery year at $329.17 for the delivery year. Arrived from the class action suit brought by Governor Shapiro, and it has already been capped out. Coming at this spring meeting by the PJM regulatory body at $16 billion. But 2 years ago, the historical price jump, which occurred during the 25-26 delivery year, saw skyrocketing prices. It went from $28.92 to $269.92 per megawatt day, a 900% increase. The capacity costs that came through to us as ratepayers went from $2.2 billion from the previous year to $14.17 billion once again. Let me give you those numbers. For the previous year, 23-24, which the annual wholesale rate capacity for a megawatt day was $28.92, times the pass through to the 67 million electricity ratepayers in the 13 states and the District of Columbia that make up the territorial regulatory, which PJM has oversight, increase from $2.2 billion at $28.92 for a megawatt day to it went to $269.92 times 67 million came to $14.17 billion. That's a hell of an increase, the largest in the history of the PJM. Now, the soaring demand from data centers from the PJM, 13 states and District of Columbia, and Virginia has over 600 data centers already online, leading the way. But the PJM has over 1,500 data centers within the confines of those 13 states and the District of Columbia. But as I indicated, Virginia leads the way with over 600 data centers, with the cost to the 67 million ratepayers across the 13 states coming to $9.3 billion, and data centers accounted for, that's what data centers accounted for 63% of the total price rise for fiscal year 25-26 delivery year. This is the facts, ladies and gentlemen. I have placed this on the back of our marketing material to educate my listeners and anyone who wants to get the facts, what the facts are. Now, the solution to address this problem was to sign up for community solar. By doing so, you're able to lock in your rates for up to 20 years. That's very important. But what's more important, ladies and gentlemen, when I look at the fact that during Mr. Ted Trabue's time with the DC Sustainable Utility, which he was the director and the founder of that the Solar for All program as a pilot through DCSCU. That program was originated by Mr. Ted Trabue, Mr. Mark Davis of WDC Solar, which is one of the founding members of the National Association of Blacks in Solar, and Mr. Darrell Green, NFL Hall of Famer, because Darrell Green is partnered in a large construction company, and they do a lot of renewable energy installs. Now, when we began to look at this Solar for All program and look at the accomplishments of the DC Sustainable Utility, who paid the contractors to do the installs in all 8 wards of the District of Columbia. They installed over 1,100 rooftop solar canopies on low and moderate income homes all over the District of Columbia. These are $30,000 systems. Homeowners did not have to come out of pocket because the District of Columbia had already placed these fees on them through their renewable portfolio standard legislation, which was passed and signed into law by Mayor Bowser in 2016, which is some of the most aggressive renewable portfolio standards in the United States, that said by 2032 that DC must lower 100,000 low and moderate income residents' energy costs by 50%. This was written into the legislation. There was a shortfall because inside of the legislation, PEPCO, as the utility provider, has to buy their energy credits or RECs from the physical landmass of the District of Columbia. That means that people had to put enough, there had to be enough solar installed on businesses, homes, whether they be public, private, nonprofit, etc. But the utility provider for the District of Columbia had to buy these credits back from those customers. But being that I have been here for the duration and broadcasting around these issues, I'm very aware that Mrs. Sandra Fry, who has served another outstanding African American who has provided leadership as head of the People's Council of the District of Columbia, testified in front of the DC City Council, and I'll never forget what she says. PEPCO can't buy what PEPCO can't get. And what she was speaking to the fact is if PEPCO cannot purchase these energy credits, then the city council had written into the law that they are fined. PEPCO has to pay that fine, but those fines are passed through to the DC ratepayers in the form of fees on their electricity bill. So let me be clear about this rate hike and how people's utility bills skyrocketed in the District of Columbia. It didn't start 2 years ago. It started with the Renewable Portfolios Standard legislation, which the DC City Council wrote. So, PEPCO pays the fine for the fiscal year 2017, the first year they were able, after the legislation was signed, and they were able to track the RECs for the entire year, there was a $15 million shortfall. That means PEPCO had to pay in fines to the DC government $15 million, which they were fined. That money was parked over under the Public Service Commission under Mrs. Betty Ann Kane when she was there. She was there before Mr. Willie Phillips came there. She was on this platform in this show saying that she was not going to approve any more requests by the DC Council because they would petition the Public Service Commission to move that monies from that account to the general account, and then it was used for other purposes other than what it was originally intended for. So let's talk about who's really responsible for the rate hikes in the District of Columbia. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, for 2017, shortfall, $15 million. For 2018, it was a $25 million shortfall. Commissioner, chairperson, Ms. Kane hit the roof. She said the DC Council won't be able to move another dollar until they put some money in the streets for programs to help low and moderate income residents in DC be able to offset this by getting them some help. That is when the Solar for All and community solar initiatives were launched in the District of Columbia. I know, ladies and gentlemen, because at that time, Tommy Wells, who had served on the council, came into the Bowser administration, and he was appointed as director of the Department of Energy and Environment. And he served in that capacity. Any major court contracts, any major deals that got cut, did not get cut and could not go into place without Tommy Wells' approval. That is what the director does. So I understand that. Myself, I met with Tommy, with Dr. Gary Harris, who used to be the dean of the School of Engineering at Howard University. We worked together on a project. Howard University and the University of District of Columbia has 274 acres of land out off of 193 out here in Hyattsville, Maryland, College Park area. We were talking about building a large-scale solar power plant to help offset some of the soaring energy costs for Howard University and the University of District of Columbia. I also did advocacy work with an organization run by Mrs. Anna Schoolman called Neighborhoods United. It started in D.C. as DC Sun. They did an outstanding job with education and community outreach and engagement, getting people to sign up for the Solar for All program. The problem was, as Tommy, as head of the Department of Energy and Environment, they didn't put no money in marketing and advertisement and spent little money with black-owned newspapers and black-owned radio stations until yours truly, on this platform, started raising hell about that. Let me be clear. I was there. On Saturday, February 9th, 2019, Neighborhoods United honored me and presented me with the Solar Ambassador Award from United Neighbors, formerly known as DC Sun, for being an outstanding advocate for advancing solar energy in the District of Columbia and supporting homeowners and community members as they made a decision to go solar. We went to meetings all over the city, ladies and gentlemen. I was there. The numbers were very poor, especially east of the river in wards 8, 5, 6, 7, because you had to have these meetings in public libraries, schools, in the evenings. People are getting off work. If you don't have a way to, even though try to provide a little food and nourishment to people, but when you're dealing with people, they got young kids, they got to get from the babysitter, go home, get their kids settled in the evening. It's very difficult to host these meetings during the week, so they tried to host these things on the weekend. That you run into another set of issues with how busy people are on the weekend. So I understood the issues, but I also understood if you don't advertise and market, you got to sell it. I don't care what it is. Now, Tommy Wells was quite aware of what the issue was because I personally had him on this show after Neighborhoods United lost their contract with DOEE. I asked Mr. Wells, Director Wells, why did they lose their contract? Because they were doing an outstanding job. He said they didn't get the numbers. They didn't sign enough people up for the community Solar for All program, for the Solar for All program, not the community solar program, but the Solar for All program. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ted Chabriel over at DCSEU, who worked in conjunction with Tommy with a build out of what we call mini microgrids, where they put canopies on the top of buildings, parking lots, and they were able to build enough micro mini grids in the District of Columbia, our nation capital, that that you have over 11,000 DC low and moderate income residents that have been able to be signed up and subscribe to community solar. And the district didn't, in their legislation, did not put a cap on how many people could sign up. And community solar is free to anyone who pays an electric bill. Company, person, home, business, church, anybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm an energy advisor. That's one of the things and services that we have bought under our affiliate marketing division here at the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative. But what is disturbing to me is that these brothers have been terminated, basically not given the ability to continue their positions at the Public Service Commission at a time where we don't have anybody who has better qualifications and experience in the job. That's what I'm talking about. This, like I said, this is not personal. This is business. Now, let's look at this. When we begin to dive down and look at the resumes of these gentlemen, and I'm going to share that information with you as to what these gentlemen have been able to accomplish there. Ted Trabue, I'm going to start with him because we were talking about him, and I've known Ted for a number of years. Was appointed to the Public Service Commission of the District of Columbia by Mayor Muriel Bowser and was confirmed by the DC Council on December 20th, 2022. His current term ends June 30th of 2026. Commissioner Trabue previously served as the managing director at the District of Columbia Sustainable Energy Utility, DCSCU. And I just finished giving you some historical facts of their accomplishments from 2011 to 2022. So, do the numbers. That's 11 years. Prior to that, he was vice president of the District of Columbia Public Affairs, Columbia Affairs at PEPCO. Worked at the Greater Washington Board of Trade as a staff director for critical issues for the District of Columbia and Maryland, and served as the chief of the staff of former DC Council Linda Kropp. Commissioner Trabue served on the DC District of Columbia Board of Elections for more than 5 years, including as president from 2010 to 2012, and as vice president in 2009. Commissioner Trabue is the fourth generation Washingtonian. Mother, grandmother, attended district public schools. He received a degree in economics from Dartmouth College and holds a law degree from Howard University School of Law. Now, Emil Thompson, a little younger than Ted. I have a tremendous amount of respect for this brother. This is the letter that is posted on the DC Public Service Commission's website. Emil Thompson, chairman of the DC Public Service Commission. Muriel Bowser of the District of Columbia, 3500 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. Dear Mayor Bowser, July 29, 26, Please accept this letter of formal notice of my resignation as chairman of the D.C. Public Service Commission, effectively August 14, 2026. It has been an extraordinary privilege to serve the district residents and advance the commission's vital mission. Having devoted my career to public service, serving as chairman has been one of my greatest honors. I deeply am grateful for your opportunity to work alongside dedicated colleagues to protect the public interest and help ensure fair, efficient delivery of utility services. I sincerely appreciate the guidance, support, and professional growth I've experienced during my tenure, as well as under your support as mayor. Your leadership has helped advance the district's clean energy goals, reinforced its position as a national leader in the field. I'm proud of the work we have accomplished over the last 5 years. The Commission has initiated public planning framework that will allow the public to truly engage in utility planning in a manner that was not previously possible. It is my hope that the commission finalizes the framework because the public deserves a seat at the energy table. Additionally, we have made substantial progress in developing a district-specific BCA framework that considers equity and will be used on future utility projects. Now, let's unpack that. He's saying we're sort of baking in an opportunity for women, minorities, and other forms of contracts to make sure when these utility companies come to them wanting certain things, that there are going to be some minority set-asides provided an opportunity created. Now, that's what I read from reading this brother's statement. We also signed the first PPA, which is a power purchase agreement for 5% of SOS loans, and awarded 3 of the 4 pilot projects funded by the merger. These pilot projects re-envisioned the energy landscape in the district without any cost to everyday ratepayers. Equally as important, we ensure that PEPCO and WGL, Washington Gas and Light, follow through with their merger commitments, including provisions to top domicile electricity reliability reduction in gas leaks and the development of 10 megawatts of clean energy by WGL. I would also note that the district is exceeding its solar carve-out requirements, and compliance with solar interconnection regulations is at an all-time high without the need for the utility incentives and increased profits. The district has also continued to have a national presence and be a leader in utility regulation. My tenure as chairman, I served as president of the organization for the PJM states and the body of the state regulators at Regulators 325 G Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. Now, I testified. Now, this is Emil speaking. He testified multiple times before the Federal Regulatory Commission about the importance of well-functioning regional transmission organizations, RTOs. That is what the PJM is. Data centers cost allocations and the need for effective capacity markets. I also serve as a member of the board of directors for the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, NORC, and an advisory member for the Electric Power Research Institute, chairman of the Critical Infrastructure Committee for the NARUC and on the advisory committee for the Critical Consumers Issues Forum. One item must be emphasized. Rising energy prices are not attributed to any one agency, group, or thing. This phenomenon is concerning across the nation. To meet the moment and fingerprint pointing approach will not work. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, ladies and gentlemen. A lot to unpack in his statement, because I didn't know that the reason why these two brothers were not given the opportunity to continue their careers, at least as they saw it, because they have families, children in college, and homes and bills to pay too. So they need to know, am I going to be here or there? Well, Mrs. Janice, George, it's your call. I hope it's not Tommy Wild's call. Now, I'm being very transparent about this. One item must be emphasized. Rising energy prices, once again, are not attributed to any one agency, group, or thing. The phenomena is occurring across the nation. To meet the moment at the fingerpointing approach will not work. That is why I opened up the way I did, ladies and gentlemen, and gave you the historical overview of who the PJM, what they do, and when this took place. On May 11th, 2026, yours truly, I was asked to be a part of a press conference which was carried on CBS News, Channel 4 in Baltimore, which I did. The Maryland Conservation of Voters and the Chesapeake Action Network, which are two 501c advocacy organizations that do a hell of a lot of organizing and advocacy work around renewable energy energies in the state of Maryland, had a press conference in front of the Marriott Baltimore Harbor, where the PJM hosted this year's spring meeting. Governor Westmore spoke about this issue. On the press conference, at the press conference that I spoke at, there were 4 state legislatures from the legislative bodies from Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey there. 2 members of their Senate, but all of them had oversight over their state energy policy committees. And they testified about PJM having closed what we call referred to professionally as the queue, where it's a place where developers have to apply if they want to build any type of major energy projects, whether it be a fossil fuel or renewable energy project. They all go into the same queue. The PJM shut down the queue and kept it closed for 8 years during the Biden-Harris administration, when there were billions of dollars in federal tax credits to assist these developers in building these wind and solar and battery storage projects, and those tax credits would have helped offset the cost being passed through to us as consumers. all of the legislators talked about it in their presentation and comments and speeches at that press conference. And they talked about that they did not have a seat at the table, but they had PJM's attention. So I would like to know this question that I'm putting out there to all the council members, including Mrs. Janice George, Charles Allen, those two who had opposed the extension of these two gentlemen's tenure at the Public Service Commission in their capacity as public service commissioners. How do you hold them responsible when this goes all the way up to the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? The PJM is who they are. This power is given to them by Congress. Not one public service commission in the 13 states could have stopped this. And they could not, and they did not, because they could not. Now, Mrs. Fry, who served as lead counsel for the Public Service Commission, she has done an excellent job in her weekly newsletter that has come out, making DC residents aware of what is going on around these issues. I didn't see nobody else talking about it from the council, but to blame Emil Thomas and Ted Trabue about this historical rate hike and not renew their opportunity, to give them the opportunity to renew and continue their careers at the Public Service Commission is at the detriment and loss of DC residents. So I chose this topic today, ladies and gentlemen. I have already been on Carl Nelson's show this morning. I called in. I asked Carl if he would provide me with some more time. His question to me was, have you spoken with Mrs. Janine George's camp? I said, I've called her camp, which I have. I got no response back, but it's not a problem. It's not a problem. I'm going to be placing other calls, and I'll be going to listening sessions that she'll be hosting in September, because she's going to be doing around the city, and I will bring these issues up. The issue is who's going to serve on the Public Service Commission, and I definitely don't want to see those two positions replaced with somebody who don't look like me. So I don't know who they have that's more qualified than the two people that were already there. And let's be clear, all this comes out of the Bowser administration. And I was not necessarily, and never have been a big supporter of Mayor Bowser. She has done some good things and some things I totally don't agree with. I live in Maryland. I don't have a vote in the District of Columbia any longer. I used to be a resident of the district for years, homeowner there. Now, but I do know, because this is everybody say, stay in your lane. I've stayed in this lane since 2015. I've done the work. You go to positivechangepc.com, which is my website. Click on our news and news tab, and you can go back and you can see all this, which I tracked. In our video gallery, you will find a video which was produced under Tommy Wells, And it almost gives him credit for the work that was done by DCSEU. I understand they funded them and they worked together, but the groundswells of this world, WDC Solars of this world, and those private contractors, they did the work. 2000, when was it, 23? Bear Bowser pulled the entire budget for DC Sustainable Utility, $20 million. It hurt a lot of these companies. But solar continues to outpace anything, even though after 47 and the mafioso rule down at 1600 Pennsylvania, with Zealand trying to rake back funding, $27 billion, which was put in the Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which Congress had already approved that money, which DC was supposed to get 62 million and Maryland was supposed to get 62 million, but the total was $7 billion. Well, the $7 billion is because of Ted Trabue and the pilot program being picked up from DC, and $7 billion was put in it. But the pilot started here. Here's a brother, they made history, and then you come back and you accuse him of a vote, and that caused the rates to jump up 2 years ago? No, that's not the case. So I'm making the case, I ain't receiving a dime from nobody. My interest is black folks. I'm not apologetic about that. This show is called Solar Now and the Future, with its economic impact on Black America. And whether we like it or not, the PJM is the regulatory entity. They are who they are. They do what they do. But when they keep the queue closed from 2000 for 8 years, community solar in Maryland started in 2017. It was room for 30,000 Maryland residents. The program capped out in 6 months. The state closed the pilot down and did not reopen it until January 1 of 2025. That's very important because of the lawsuit that was brought by Governor Shapiro. PJM reopened the queue in January of 2025. That's when Maryland transitioned from a pilot program to a permanent program, and they lift the cap to 300,000. So 300,000 sounds like a great, huge number. Let me be clear, folks. Maryland got 6 million residents. Total number of electric bill ratepayers, I guess I could try to Google it, but I don't know off the top of my head. But I do know this. The program's been open since January 1 of 2025. It is now August 14th of 2025. That's over a year and a half. Believe me, I don't know how many slots are left, but everybody has to go on a waiting list. During that 8 years, the Maryland Public Service Commission approved 40 solar subscription companies to be able to legally sign people up in the state of Maryland. Think Energy, which I'm an independent contractor with, is one of those companies, and they have some very unique offerings and services. The community solar program, the auto save program is not available in Maryland and Virginia. It's not available in Maryland and Virginia. The auto save program is only available in DC, but the solar credits program, lower your electric bill with solar credits, is also available in Maryland. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, is that these programs are going to cap out quick. There's no real dollars being put in marketing and advertising in mainstream media. Think Energy has come up with a network marketing solution for that. If you're interested in becoming an energy advisor, you can log on to get.thinkenergy.com/solar now and the future. That is my login page. Once again, get.think, THINKENGERY.com/solar now in the future. The same as our YouTube podcast show, Solar Now in the Future. So, ladies and gentlemen, please sign up, lock in your rate. Now, as I was saying, Maryland has launched another program, and I'm using this as an example as to why it's very urgent for especially those of communities of color, African American, Hispanic communities to get on top of this. A Brighter Futures legislation. The Community Solar Program, Governor Wes Moore just put $43 million in for more bill outs to get more people off the waiting list because of the bottleneck created by the PJM. By PJM pushing all of the solar, wind, and battery storage to the back of the queue, this did not allow developers to build out to put more green credits up on the grid. Without that, there's no way to assign people to projects, and this prevents all 13 states from being able to reach their community solar and energy climate change goals. It creates a bottleneck for the solar subscription companies because people cannot get the financial benefit as quick as they need to be seeing it. It's kind of hard to tell somebody to sign up for something, but and then you can't tell them when they're going to start seeing the benefit, even if it's free. But I'm honest with folks and letting folks know that they will have to go on this waiting list unless they begin to advocate for more funding to go into more bill outs so that they can get the benefit. Now, there's one other way to deal with this, ladies and gentlemen. You can go online and you can Google the PJM. And if you're one who buys stock and plays day trading, you can find out who's these 1,131 companies are. And if you got stock, you can go to the virtual or however they have their meetings, and you can say, I got a problem with y'all voting to keep the renewable energy projects and developers from building out so we can save on our electricity bill. That's what it comes down to. The state legislatures can't do it. They need the people. And I'm putting the call out to the people because it says the most powerful document in this country starts off with not me, the data centers, not me, the billionaires. It starts off with we the people. We the people. We, the people, we are the ones who they get everything from. And we need to stop getting pimped. Because I've been around a long time. And it's like my grandmama said, Miss Emma McLeod, she said, son, if common sense was common, everybody have some. So I'm going to close my show on that note, bruh. Now, that's real talk. Until next week, we don't want you to meet us back here. We want you to beat us back here. As I close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And this show will be posted under our news on our main page on our website at Positive Change PC. You'll be able to listen to the show, and we're going to put it under our news and events segment, so it'll be there. So if anyone wants to hear this show, it's there for your listening. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative. We produce this show, Solar Now and the Future, with its economic impact on Black America. And we are your online digital podcast, radio, YouTube, TV network. And you're not going to get nobody else talking about this issue for this sister, Mrs. George, to put this in her actual platform, and for this brother to talk about fingerprint pointing, and that's what he's talking about. They were actually accused of being responsible for the historic rate hike for 25-26 delivery year. That's a tragedy, because I don't want to believe that this sister is that uninformed. And with that being said, we don't want you to meet us back here. We want you to beat us back here. Until next week, we say go in peace. As we close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America.